Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Jericho Wastewater Task Force. January 29th.
You're up there.
Oh. We good? Okay. Got some meeting objectives this evening. We're going to be doing the study status check reorientation. We're going to continue the task force review the 60% PER, refine goals and needs to direct Du Bois and King on what the needs are to be analyzed for the future PER. I feel like that's our biggest goal, right? Right. Like we need to give them direction on what to spend their focus on between now and the next iteration, which is the 90%. And then prepare for the select board meeting. Tonight on the agenda, we have opportunity for public comment. We're going to look at the minutes. We're going to do the study midpoint review, as I just mentioned, and then discuss key questions to inform the direction, and then discuss and decide on an assessment of additional disposal sites. Discuss and decide on the approach to the presentation, and we'll adjourn hopefully by 6:30.
Can I propose a modification to the agenda?
You do it now, I think that's allowed, yeah.
All right. Number 6 is discuss and decide on assessment of additional disposal sites. I would say if we only get as far as discussion and not decision, we can continue this conversation at our next meeting when John Ashley is in attendance. But we could at least today, for starters, just kind of sketch out the parameters of what there is to decide about.
Okay.
In case other things take more time.
Anyone have a problem with committing to not necessarily deciding on number 6?
I have not a problem with it, but a question about, so we would leave this meeting feeling like we're leaning in this direction, we're not really decided yet, and then come to the next meeting with John here, and at that meeting, we would remind ourselves of our conversations and then decide that.
Good. Yeah.
And our next meeting is
Wednesday of next week, February 4th.
cool. All right, with that, we'll move on to opportunity for public to be heard for comments that are not on the agenda. So if it's one of the things related to, if it's something related to what I just listed, then we'll just look for commentary then. But if you have something that isn't on the agenda, now's the time to ask about it.
If you don't mind, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Ashra Karfawi, who works for the Indirect Discharge Program. She's here to participate in the PER discussion.
What program should you work for?
The Indirect Discharge Program
Oh, okay.
at DEC.
Cool.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, hello everyone.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Elizabeth Harris, that's someone we know. Well, I guess you would speak up if you have anything.
Okay. Next is approve the minutes.
That refer to these notes, like actually said notes in this document. Is that meeting notes? These are the minutes. Okay, I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Study midpoint review, discuss and confirm activities June 30th, 2026.
Not doing timeline.
So I think it's worth it. All right, so for this agenda item, and for folks I haven't met before, my name is Kate McCarthy, and I'm with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission helping out on this project. So as usual, we're kind of showing the project timeline here just to orient ourselves to the process, orient others who may be listening. Here we are in Q1 of 2026, and we're working on the PER deliverables in purple there. We've received the 60% PER. We've added some decision points. And as we've learned more about this process, you can see the one that's the yellow one that's pointed to is that, as Eric said, it's very important that we identify which alternative or combination of approaches to explore further as the PER wraps up. And we'll be trying to answer some questions today that'll get us closer to that. But again, this is an estimate. This could change. The other thing we're working on that's not on this list is a complementary study that is funded in part by Municipal Planning Grant to understand some build-out scenarios for Riverside Village, to understand what's possible and what some wastewater needs might be. And that needs to move in alignment and speak to the PER. One of the things Eric said at the last meeting, and I'll count on you to correct me if I don't get this quite right.
I don't remember even being at the last meeting, so.
Okay, well, wait till you hear what Eric said at the last meeting. You noted that we had pretty good, we'd made some really good progress. We got some test bits done this fall. We had good momentum. We got the PER basically when we wanted it. And we had some big decisions ahead. So I think what you expressed is that it's okay and probably important to take the time we need to take to make the decisions, especially with this complementary study. So because we're talking about the timeline, I just wanted to reiterate that point, that we're not, I wouldn't say we're slowing down, but we're digging in on some decision making to get to the 90%. Okay. So So making Eric look good here. So with all that in mind, we're about halfway through our first year of work on this already. And much more than halfway, because before I arrived on the scene, you did the feasibility study, but this task force has been in place for about a little over 6 months, and wanted to take this moment to just pause and talk about the next steps for the next 4 or 5 or 6 months. I wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we have a shared understanding. So I spoke with Chris Shaheen, and we identified these 4 steps, which I'll read and then we can discuss and make sure they're the right ones. 1, keep momentum with the preliminary engineering report as we gather additional information to shape the final document and the alternatives. Identify a preferred alternative for the 90% report. Those are related. Coordinate and incorporate the development build-out scenarios with the PER, and continued community outreach as we have more and more information, letting people know kind of where the decision points are and where they can influence them. So wanted to pause for a moment and ask the task force if those are the right next steps, if that's the right place to focus our energy, if we should phrase it differently, if we should include something else. Wanted to open it up for discussion.
It seems to me that an important next step is going to be identifying land.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, because I think that we're just really going to have to know that we have land that we can use. And I think we kind of want to have a better grasp of that before we recommend something to D&K. I mean,
You mean recommend something like this is the direction for the 90%
well,
report?
yeah, because I'm sort of thinking myself that the first phase could be done at the middle school, because it seems like the easiest land to get or to get the use of, but we don't know that yet. And so I just don't know how, at a certain, and we're making an effort to be in touch with the school, but anyway, I just feel like that might want to be, I think that's an important thing to happen soon.
On that, Chris, I thought bullet point number 2 was kind of that, right? Or am I looking at that incorrectly? When I see preferred alternative.
Yeah, I guess it could be part of that.
It's like a data point before that, though.
Well,
to make sure that we've got,
make sure we can use it.
Right.
I was thinking the same thing, though, that it was part of the 90%
Okay.
report, but it was just like a sub-task of figuring that
I definitely,
Okay.
I agree with you, Chris. I mean, Tetros parcels, number 1, it's approved. first phase, whatever it is, to access that, but where are we gonna go from there?
You mean access Tetros for septic?
Facilitate his development with the first phase. You know, that's an approved subdivision, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
If we can,
But isn't the vision this?
But I don't think we could catch that, right? Do we think which do we think would happen first?
His first phase is accommodated by septic on his own site, so it would be accommodating, it would be to service any future development on his land.
correct. But again, with the first phase through planning and zoning and the master plan approved, it should happen fairly quick.
Probably before, if the town decides to pursue a system,
Before we do it.
it would happen before.
If you look,
Yeah.
even if we, have the CHIPS program up and running, by the time you get another applicant in there and have to run it, especially if it's any size, we're still stuck with Act 250 in some regards. Tetros piece is the most advantageous phase 1 and phase 2. I would think before we look somewhere else.
Sorry,
Is that something you
Sorry,
want
I
to
wanna
fold
clarify
into our
one
next
more.
steps? Oh,
when you say looking for, are you saying look at Tetros space to use his land for septic? Or you mean his land for development and so septic on at Browns River would service that?
Phase 2, so Tetros approved an on-site septic for phase 1.
Right, he has that already, that's what he put in front of the market, I
Yes.
think.
Correct.
That's all taken care of, and he has his phase 1 plan, and he's gonna build that hopefully soon, and that will be served by his own septic.
And I see it as phase 2 of it. Pushed ahead, that would be the school property is.
Okay,
Giving
the
that-
property would service his phase 2
Correct.
stuff, okay.
right, we've talked about that as one scenario or one possibility
Yeah.
that the public wastewater system could support phase 2 of Tetros development and possibly other development as well.
Yeah, I would think it would need, I mean, I think it would definitely be tied to something on Tetros, could be tied to something on Tetros property, particularly depending on what funding mechanism we go, but depending on what funding mechanism we go, we may need to provide service to more than just one property.
They have the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So is
sorry.
that something we want to fold in some way? I know we want to keep, what do you,
I say, to me, what we just discussed falls in bullet point number 2.
Okay.
Underneath it.
so maybe what I would say is make bullet point 2 read, identify a preferred alternative, including disposal sites, which is kind of implied,
Yeah.
right? But worth saying. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
What's the timing on the MPG build out report or whatever the proper word is for that?
So, myself and staff from CCRPC have been talking to a specific consultant to nail down specifically what the scope of work and deliverables are gonna be. So we can get started on that as soon as possible. So I'm hoping we'll be able to do that within the next couple of weeks, somewhere in there.
Get them rolling, like give them the information they need and get them working.
Yes, but somewhere in there, we need to get before the select board to approve the agreement between us and CCRPC. So that's a step we need to take.
That's set up for next meeting, right?
It's not gonna be, probably not next week, because we're still working out the specifics of the deliverables and the scope of work, so it'll probably be on the 19th.
So is that, and then once they start, is that weeks, months? Do we have a sense of that?
It's months, not
Months?
weeks.
Okay,
Um,
so we won't know that information. I mean, we might get that at the same time we get the 90% report, is that?
we're gonna have to figure out how they can be talking to each other along the way. Yeah, and
But it's gonna be like April, right? Because you won't get it approved by the select board until the second meeting in February. They get rolling March 1st, say,
Right.
a couple months is into April.
Yeah, and I'm anticipating that it's not like the build out scenario work needs to be finished
Right.
before we're
Might get a
coordinating, that they'll be
60% or
moving
something,
in parallel, right? And as we get information from one, it'll be informing the other, so it'll be a back and iterative process.
and if if the PER needs to be completed in July or even August in order to kind of work with that, I think this group could decide to make a recommendation to the select board about that to give ourselves a little flexibility.
If you were to guess, if we were to, let's say Chris's point aside about we want to make sure we've got permission before we go full steam ahead into the 90, but let's say we had that and we were ready and we gave Du Bois King the direction that we want them to focus on our next select board meeting. What's the timeline after we give? I don't think we'll be ready to do that, but maybe we will. I don't know. But what would the timeline be if we did give that to get from 60 to 90? What is that?
I don't have a quick answer on that. So what I'm gonna do is look at the PER services agreement between Du Bois and King and the town and the initial timeline for the number of weeks between the 60 and 90 to give us a ballpark.
Okay.
It was on
I was wondering.
timeline
was on that
graphic.
timeline
It might even
graphic.
be on the timeline graphic.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Final design and permitting, Q3.
No, that's, oh, were you asking about that or were you asking about the 90%?
The 90%.
So the 90% would be done before final design and permitting,
Yeah.
right? So
So the purple
dot.
between Q2 and Q3
Right.
2026
There we go.
is when, right, is when we think the 100% report is, because that's the final deliverable shown there on the PER.
I'd expect at least a few months between the 60 and the 90, once we give them the go-ahead. And if it's okay to invite our engineers to chime in if they know more decisively. Why?
But part of what
There's
we're,
a lot more goes into that
July,
than,
August.
because of the funding and so on, then on our private side. So I'm not going to
Okay,
comment on that. I can't. really.
no comment.
Same.
No comment from me.
part of, well,
Thanks, Annette.
I was just gonna say, I feel like part of what we're gonna ask Du Bois and King is the scale of phase one. And it seems like we might be in a better place to make that decision after we had some feedback from the Municipal Planning Grant. Unless we alternatively, we could just say, assume that Browns River Middle School, whatever the capacity that has, is phase one. But, I don't know how that relates to cost and anything else.
I think these are going to keep kind of doing
Right,
this. The
right.
build out is going to tell us sort of what's possible and how much wastewater capacity it requires. They'll draw some from the PER, which will keep refining its estimates. In the PER, likely there will be additional assessment of disposal sites. So that's going to give us more ideas about capacity, which will inform the build out. I like straight lines. I kind of wish it was a straight line. It's not. It's a
But it would be our job ultimately to ask Du Bois and King, phase one should be X number of gallons per day or, right? I mean, they're not gonna make
That is definitely one thing that I'm hoping to get out of this, right? I think I've said that pretty repeatedly. Like, I really want to understand their recommendation of the phases. But with a discussion we were having at the last meeting, which I do remember now, and we were to hypothetically like remove a whole area like we were talking about, if we were to do that, I don't know, do we still phase or is the remainder like small enough that maybe Browns River site could handle the whole thing, or, I feel like I got close to some level of understanding of that last time. But that's really what I want to know from them out of this study is like, what makes sense to phase? Knowing our goals, right, which is catch phase 2 of Tetro property and whatever additional
Capacity we might have.
connections for existing that we want to do.
At our meeting on the 4th, I think one of the main objectives should be to improve understanding of the phasing options. John will be here with us.
Yeah.
We have monthly check-ins with him, just project management check-ins, and during that, he showed us kind of a cool spreadsheet. You'll have to trust me on that. But there are lines on the spreadsheet that correspond with areas on the land that could be served, and each row of the spreadsheet corresponds to an area on the land. It also includes information about estimated gallons per day needed to serve that sub area and the cost to build that portion. So it's a spreadsheet where you can kind of toggle on and off to see what different configurations are gonna serve and cost. And John shared that with us to let us know about that's a tool for developing the phases.
That's huge.
Yeah. So that was assuring.
Yeah.
So that can be part of the conversation next
So
week.
maybe that ask is perhaps very easy for him to answer. I don't know, because of that sheet.
Or here's the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You guys can play with it. Like,
Yeah.
Turn on raceway, turn off raceway. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. So as we prepare for that meeting, put together the agenda and prep John, we'll keep in mind, we'll emphasize the importance of the phasing conversation.
Question on the grant for the, this, I guess, development or whatever it is that we have. What is some of the criteria that you look at when you guys are developing these scenarios? When you look at from a planning perspective, what are some of the things you're going to be looking at when deciding, these options?
Lot location, lot size, lot lines, setbacks, building envelopes. That would give us an idea of what a build out would look like.
Mm-hmm.
What else would we be looking at?
Heights, road networks.
Must be some sense of density.
Yeah, within the form-based code light.
Right, I mean, the building envelopes will give us building footprints.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would assume different for.
And then that's where I think there'll be some talk back and forth about what's the capacity of a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and where would the development go, and what actually could you build out with this? Like if the capacity is only for X number of dwelling units, then what are ways that could be laid out, and where would we want to focus those on, and what would the service area be?
Okay.
I would add another thing that it's not a criterion, but something to consider is infill on existing lots. So there's the new development potential on the vacant lot or the mostly vacant lot, but then also what support might be needed or what might be possible on existing lots that are larger.
Did anybody do infill? Always, whenever Mike says that, right? That's like
Happening right across the street.
And
The property right across the
what
street,
you call it?
re-subdivided in the back, and it's building a house back there.
Really? Okay.
And it can be an apartment over a garage that I would count that an infill.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
Accessory dwelling units.
No, I know for sure, but I feel like we all talk about, we get infill, it'd be great, but I feel like that's great that Louise or whoever's doing it over there, but I just don't have a sense that actually, we do infill, okay, great, but it actually happened.
Chris and I actually talked about that a little bit last week. The reason I asked about the scenarios is what comes to me when I look at that too, is also comes into play is water service capacity. Is the existing water service sufficient to supply it? And two, again, as we look at this, the engineering side of, here we got a spot, let's say, the wastewater system's up here and all the development's down here. Are we pumping it? Can we get gravity?
You might have missed the meeting where the gentleman from the water district came.
That was
last meeting.
They seem to have.
What I mean by capacity is this, Chris, is, you put in, let's say you want to put in 20 homes, but your water service is only 4 inch. And not 8 inch or not 6 inch.
See, I like
So,
to ignore all that stuff. I heard the guy say there's plenty.
Yeah, I heard it
and I
say.
moved on.
and, you know, so.
They're using 4, they have 40. I remember that. They're
Yeah.
using 4 whatever, they have 40.
That's like the level of detail that I.
It's not
Yeah.
math, so you know that's 10%.
Exactly.
So it's more, it's a bigger number.
Yeah, exactly.
It's bigger, that's correct.
So I look at it, you know, that's what, when we look at that, it's like, okay, how good is the infrastructure there right now? You know, so, and again, if we go with septic, how are we gonna get it there? You know, so to me, sometimes just the cost of pumping it somewhere with lift stations and so on, it could make a difference, because we've seen pump stations on a municipal side of $100,000.
So I think when we get a little later, we're gonna see the number of parcels outlined in yellow that are maybes. As disposal sites beyond I mean, I know you've seen that picture. But beyond the middle school, and that might be another way to answer that question is if the service area is if the area that most needs to be served is over here. And, you know, and the middle school is over here, can we find sites near there, like match need with disposal capacity? Could you go to the next slide, Chris? Okay, so we're gonna modify bullet point 2 here. Other thoughts on this?
I just keep thinking about what Chris said. I don't know if we should wait for permission or we get permission along the way.
From the high school, from the school?
Or wherever we decide to put it, right? Like whether we confirm that we have access to whatever land that we pick or we do it without it, because
Do what? Finish the
go to the
report?
90 with
I think we don't want to go to the, well, I don't, you guys are professionals.
I would ask Lynette what's typical.
Hey, Lynette.
Can I want to phone a friend on this one.
It depends a little bit on the community. Often the report's finished without the consultation, but I think that it's important that people aren't caught by surprise, and that some of that dialogue happened early. A lot in this type of potential project, the land acquisition often falls through at the last minute. And so just making sure that that engagement is happening can kind of help keep things focused and progressing. That being said, it is an okay outcome for the report to recommend, keeping an eye on a parcel for the event that it becomes available for purchase.
Are you saying that there are plenty of PERs that get finished without having the site nailed down?
Yes.
Are there some that do have the site? I guess if it's a municipal property, it would, but are there ones where there's a third party property involved and that is all worked out by the time the PER is done?
No, there's usually like permission from the landowner, like written authorization from the landowner to go into the property and do the testing and whatever is necessary to identify that it's a good site. But it stops short of having like a purchase and sales agreement or even some sort of option on the land. And that's kind of where the negotiations have gone right, even with people who've volunteered to donate their land. It's been hard to get the paperwork through at the end.
So it sounds like you're saying it would be unusual to have a third party site nailed down by the time we have the PER.
Yes. But also, recommending a couple sites is kind of a good thing to do.
As a select board member, I really don't want a 90% report that's hoping that we can get land and then that land falls through. We go, oh crap, if we known that 2 months ago, we would have done this instead. We need a new 90% report. I feel like I personally have all my eggs in the Brunswick basket right now. And I think we need to get that basket across the finish line and get that, if not down to a contract, but get Edie or Kevin or whoever to say, yes, we're going to go ahead and make this possible.
Maybe we
I'm not
should
saying it's your
check
problem,
out
but-
John.
And it sounds like, yeah, I should.
Oh, the
Okay,
new superintendent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Say, just please let us have a meeting.
Because if they say no, like, I feel like that.
He's coming to the select board meeting on Thursday.
Oh, okay, yeah,
The superintendent is, or the principal?
Unrelated to this.
unrelated to this. though.
Unrelated to this, but I latched onto that to try to get his attention, and that's.
right, yeah.
So worst case scenario,
But
we can,
I don't think you would want to have that discussion.
no, but just to like remind him
Oh,
about
yeah.
that we want to have a discussion, not confront him
Yeah.
with the question there.
Right.
I'll reach back up to him again. We kind of got agreement, and then
Yeah.
he.
Are we meeting to meet? Just
Yeah,
me and him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, you guys got agreement on when, okay.
So I think these things can all continue in parallel, the conversation with Browns River Middle School, the PER, the possible exploration of additional sites, whether or not the middle school ends up being a viable collaboration, it'll be important to know about other sites so that if we need more capacity, we know about what's available, and if Browns River doesn't work out, we know it's about what's available.
I could imagine that I can't imagine many reasons the middle school would object, but
That's
one possible reason would be the loss of their fields for the construction of this project and what, like, how long would it take to build that? And if they were without their playing fields for, part of their school year, what would the
Well,
suggestion?
That's probably the first question gonna be.
Right.
part of, a couple things on that, Chris, is I know I saw in the plans the possibility of lifting one field 2 feet. Okay, because of the mound system thing, or semi-mound they have to create on. But also remember, for one season, Mount Mansfield High School soccer fields were all torn up, and we did all of our games and practices and volunteers, great. And we do have Mills Riverside Park.
That's what I was thinking was.
We, you know,
So busy though, like it already is so
It's pretty
busy for
busy.
soccer.
That's a pretty, maybe
Small grain
let's
size.
pin this really specific thing. This is important, and it's gonna be important to talk with the school district and also to talk with parents and caregivers. Because there could be,
I agree, we're getting too nitty-gritty with that, but it does seem like we need to figure out if we're saying that if Peter's basically said he doesn't want to move towards the 90% any further until we have a better understanding of permission, not necessarily a signed contract, but like that we get the school district on board.
I wouldn't tell them don't move forward at all. I just don't want them to be given their marching orders and go off and start doing their work. And then a month into their work, where they give us a report, and we go, oh, let's go check the Browns River now. And they say no, and I'm like, okay, we have a report that's now useless. All right, useless, but it's got a whole big chunk of work done that is no longer useful.
so headed in the right direction, it seems, with
Yeah.
with the meeting getting organized. And we'll talk a little bit more later and at the next meeting about some maybe complementary sites or if necessary, alternative
Yeah.
sites. All right. Anything else on these?
actually, I got something. So at the bottom, continuing community outreach. So Susan, I guess, are you guys a subcommittee for that? So I have a
Myself, Chris.
Oh, the outreach, yeah.
Chris and I talked about this the other day. I'm not so sure that the general public knows the opportunities with the Homes Act for accessory dwelling units and so on. And I do think that's a good selling point that we want to release to the public, especially if we're looking for infill density. Here's an opportunity that most people don't know. If all of a sudden you got septic in your front yard, that maybe mom and dad don't have to go to the home and they can be in an accessory dwelling unit behind you. So maybe the idea of, some kind of outreach to let everyone know that.
So I agree with you, and I've been encouraging our affordable housing committee to do more outreach about ADUs and energy efficiency. I mean, there's not a million, but there's lots of programs that people could tap into. Home Share Vermont, which is not exactly infill, but converting your single family home to a duplex. But maybe our task force subcommittee should do more of that, like you're saying.
I don't know if it's just the more people we get to buy in and understand the
what the gain
Opportunities.
is, for the opportunity.
It makes this easier to push all the way down.
Right, because if we had, say, like a concerted effort to educate people, and then we had redid the survey that we just did, like, what do you have? What
Right.
ideas do you have for your land? It would be interesting to see if you could drive that response higher,
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's a few things I'd like to do.
Thanks, Joe. Great. So I think these are decent working, it's a
Sorry,
decent working
I
outline.
misread your purple cues.
Your inflection.
Maybe I've misspoken my verbal cues. This good? All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Next slide.
Yes, please. All right, so that was high level. Taking it down to a little more granularity. We wanted to discuss some of the key questions that some key questions that could help inform the direction of the PER. These were in your prep notes, and we've put them on the slide here. So in other words, what do we need to direct D&K on what to further analyze in the PER? So I'll just read the questions, and maybe we can go through them one by one. So taking into account goals in the town plan, funding sources for different types of development, community needs, how should a wastewater system's capacity be allocated to serve new and/or existing development? Based on information in the PER and your local knowledge, are there areas that don't appear to need service and areas that really need service? This is a small group that could do some brainstorming on that. We would need to ask people what they need and want. We would need to do another layer of outreach to validate that. And then as we go, this can be an as we go along question. What questions do you have for John Ashley from Du Bois King, who will be here at our next meeting? If there's something we can't quite get to the bottom of together, we'll put a pin in it and ask him next week. So from talking with Chris and Lynette, these seems to be, and John Ashley, these seem to be some of the key questions that we need to answer to provide direction.
Didn't we decide that the areas around Raceway could be self-supported going forward?
That's what Justin said pretty strongly.
I agree. And yeah, we had that discussion. We didn't fully commit to anything, but it was definitely a hard lean that's a pretty self-sufficient area considering a couple opportunities there.
Okay. Yep.
Is that basically everything on that side of 15? Of all the soils there?
Yes, yeah, we didn't actually look at a map when we had that conversation. We were sort of all imagining.
Well, again, from Justin's input and mine, looking at across there, some of the soils are really good, especially when you're going down Raceway on the south side of it.
Justin talked about both the Valley's Edge loop and also across the street, other side of Raceway. He was saying that both of those people, he had done something in both of those areas, and they all have like incredible soil.
Yeah. But again, the south side of Riverside is more advantageous to stand alone as opposed to maybe the north side. Again, those are all smaller lots.
What's the south side and the north side?
We need to get
Valley's Edge is on the south side.
Is there a slide?
Subdivision.
Of Raceway or 15?
Of Raceway.
Okay. So the
North side tends to be more small lots that are more indicative infill accessory dwelling units that
starters.
would love to have
I'd like to get the
a
suitable.
force main or whatever in the front yard.
Yep.
That connect on.
It's okay to have that up if we want to keep talking about this. I'm trying to find an image that talks a little bit about demand or interest and constraints.
I feel like that question, though, that whole Raceway discussion is going to be part of what we ask him about the phasing. I think that's how we say, hey, look, if we cut this whole area out, what would your phasing recommendations be? Would you still even recommend phasing, or would you say, well, it makes more sense to just do the whole thing, or you take all the rest and you break it up into two, and one's at the middle school, and that'll get you connections of existing and some of the growth, and then you do another phase in wherever else. I feel like that's the conversation I really want to have with him, and I don't know how much he can do now or compared to how much he could do at the 90. But I think if he can't do that now, I I get to vote right now and I was giving them direction, that would be part of the direction that I would give them, is help us understand the phasing.
I also think that the sites in the commercial district, I don't think that necessarily needs to be part of this.
No, and that's a great point. This map of disposal sites includes includes the commercial district, which is not part of the study area, but does have some potential disposal sites. They're probably too far away from the area to be served, but this is an old map. I wonder if I could share a map that might help us think about areas that need or might not need service.
I need to give you,
I might need permission.
And I'm not saying we have to do that just because that's what I just said. That is such a
Big piece.
big piece, and I've been interested in it since it was actually Catherine who came up with the idea when she's like, hey, could we do it in phases so that we could
Absorb, spread the cost.
spread the cost and do it quick enough to catch some of Tetros? And ever since then, I've been interested in it. So
need to stop sharing.
You need to stop sharing, yeah.
While they're sorting that out, just a question for the group, like thinking about the new development versus existing people and infill. It feels like to me, like the big selling point for this is like, oh, we're gonna make Tetros property just be bopping. And
Well-
we're gonna get all this new growth, your taxes are gonna go down because the ground's gonna grow so much.
So in
So,
addition to that, if we use CHIP to finance it, we would really want to stress the new development.
right, yes, yep. So let me throw out a number. So like 80% of the wastewater goes to new development and 20% goes to existing users. Is that ridiculous? Is that stupid? Does anybody have any say? That's how I'm thinking. Like, I feel like the biggest thing is new development and that the existing users is more like, oh, if you're there, like, great, that'd be great to tie it in because then we've got existing users.
I think that the ratio, because the ratio I had in my head was 60-40,
Mhm.
came up with the same, but so maybe 70-30,
Right,
but
right.
but I think that ratio has to be plotted over time. So that maybe it starts at 80-20, 80 new, but as you go along and systems age.
Sure. Yeah.
And the new development has a peak and then,
And
so it's not, I don't think it's just a
Yeah,
one number
Yeah.
answer.
I would agree, especially with, if one area is more advantageous and more people want it. And advantageous engineering wise, more, it doesn't cost as much to get to this place first. Again, keep it tight the first phase. So it could be 60-40,
and it may depend on the funding, right? Because
Mhm.
CHIP is 100% about growth, right? CHIP
It's about new tax revenue.
New
exactly.
tax revenue
Yeah.
is the only thing CHIP does not care that
Right.
there's existing systems. So my guess is, in order to fund this thing, from what I've heard, we're gonna need lots of different sources, right? So like the CHIP piece might cover the 80% and then
There's
Clean
something,
water
something else in
revolving
the report
state
that
water revolving fund or
that
whatever.
new growth wasn't allowed.
That's for the more traditional non-chip funding, not that it's not allowed, but it
Yeah.
can't just be based on all new development.
Right.
It has to really fund, I think that's what Lynette was talking about the last
Right.
meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the
And
funding
I
is gonna
think-
inform that more than,
We had, that's why though the development scenario matters, because we have to make sure the math works, that
To hit.
the tax increment revenue will be enough
Adequate.
to support the size of X millions of dollars of a system.
right.
I know we talk a lot about, well, Greg Tatro comes up a lot, and Noble Properties that comes up a lot, and I know for CHIP, he needs to be associated with a specific project. But I think it's also important to keep in mind that this is not just about that property, and there are a lot of properties around that have a lot of infill opportunity that we've seen them coming in for subdivision. And I don't want in people's minds to be thinking that this is a municipal a community wastewater project for one property. That it's really a broader discussion that's the biggest opportunity, but it's not just about that one property.
Yeah, it's an important point.
That's a really good point.
It's
Because I
important.
was definitely down that path you're describing. That's a really good point. And as far as in.
I think the way to think of it is our best opportunity for growth is that area,
Yes,
which includes
a large 15-acre property surrounded by
Yeah,
other.
As well
Yes,
as a bunch of other
yeah,
Have
property.
lots of potential, and we're seeing them, like they're coming
Yeah.
through permitting for subdivision.
So, Kate, this is your new map.
Yeah, I wonder if we should kind of wrap up the new compared to existing development. We've heard from a couple people that are leaning new. Are there different opinions or ratios about new versus existing? Not versus. The combination of service to new and existing development.
For me, it's more the area. And it's gonna be a mix of new and potentially of infill. Like if we focus on, just say the triangle between Park 15 and River and the properties across the street. That's gonna be a mix of infill and new development. There's obviously a big opportunity for new development. But
So the ratios.
I think
But
there's gonna be a
infill
little
could count as new development too. I'm thinking new homes, more homes.
Yes,
more-
but it could be,
Yeah,
yes,
it could be an ADU. It
I'm
could
sorry,
be-
yeah,
Or bed.
thinking of it that way, yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think. I mean, I really think that's where we're at, right? The select board wouldn't have done even the initial. I keep forgetting the name of the first study.
Feasibility
The
study.
feasibility study. We wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for wanting to get some more growth in our centers.
And diverse types of housing.
And so-
we have.
So I understand like wanting to help some of the existing people for a lot of reasons, including helping to fund it, because they'll pay to connect and all that stuff, but like, to me, the main point is growth.
Just wanted to- yeah.
Just a quick question. When you were talking, Susan, about the percentage changing over time, do we need to identify, I mean, is it true that if we just put a system in there and we run the pipes and then people sign up or they don't? And Greg builds and that takes some of it, and then some people are like, oh, sorry, can't sign up anymore because we're full. We use all of our capacity. Do we have to say like it's gonna be 80-20 or 60-40 or like how does it when it actually like happens?
Good idea to have a target allocation so that there aren't any, whoops, I thought I could sign up, but I can't.
Like Williston
Okay,
has
okay, yeah, yeah.
a whole.
Okay, so break in and buy all of it. Oh, sorry, you all lose because we're gonna use all of it here.
Yeah, they have like this
That's up to
whole
the
like
town.
Yeah.
allocation formula ordinance thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, some developers seem like they wait like 3 years to
Okay.
start their project because they're waiting for their allocation.
Gotcha.
I don't
I
know
think
how they do it or how they
most-
decide it's complicated.
Most municipalities with a wastewater system have allocations, actually per address. Like Essex, Essex Center, we do development there, there's allocation for so much sewer. So,
And then there's also the allocation of commercial versus residential, because
Yeah.
assuming we want some
Commercial.
commercial.
That helps, thank you.
it helps,
I didn't know
the
that.
business is great, but man, in certain situations, that's a huge sap of capacity on when you're looking at.
Oh, yeah, you drop a restaurant and then.
Yeah, there's a reason you don't see a car wash, you
Yeah.
don't see any car washes that doesn't have municipal sewer.
Right. And they're not permitted in the Riverside Village.
And I think we all agree a bar is, we need a bar first, and you start getting
That's
some houses.
phase
around.
one is the bar. Right, Brown Liquor will serve the bar and then we'll fill it out from there.
The rest will just work.
You think about, the pub and breweries, you would think that the wastewater from people going there, having beer
Right.
would be the biggest flow, but
Right.
it's not. And the most damage, it's actually making the beer. Is
Brewing in the
biggest
high,
one.
what is it, the high organic
Maybe we can't
flow.
brewery, but we can go,
They can brew it here and bring it down to L&D.
All right, so I think I'm not hearing anyone say we absolutely need to prioritize existing development. I'm hearing about the origins of the feasibility study and there's some general consensus. Okay, and I'm also hearing that being able to access CHIP for at least a portion of it is very important.
Yeah.
One thing I want to remind folks about CHIP, the Community and Housing Investment Program, is that the increment from the new development probably won't cover the full cost of the wastewater. And the increment from the new development doesn't start coming into the town's, so by increment, I mean the new taxes from the new development. That doesn't start coming into the town's coffers until the buildings get built. And so no matter what, there will be bonding at the municipal level. And that's something we'll have to work through in terms of communication and.
really good at other sources of funding, right? Like, that's
I
the
hope-
goal, is to get
That is the goal.
a ton of funding and not just.
But even if CHIP covered the entire thing, let's just say CHIP,
Right,
we're gonna,
little lag.
we still have to have a bond to to cover the time between A and B. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Thank you. New compared to existing development, we've talked about pretty thoroughly.
What are the numbers on that sheet?
Let me tell you about the numbers
Oh,
on the
okay.
sheet. So this is a map that we got from John Ashley. It is a summary of needs. So what they I have to stand up to look at this. We've talked about parcel constraints. We've talked about people's interest in connecting. We've talked about, so those are all factors that raise a parcel up in the likelihood that it might need or benefit from community wastewater. So here in the legend, you can see that this, these colors, 0 through 5, those are numbers, but the colors associated with the numbers 0 through 5 show the number of constraints on the parcel, constraints or property interest. So you get a point each for these. Survey interest in connecting to the municipal wastewater. An area limited parcel, so maybe no room for replacement. A leach field over 30 years old, a floodplain and leach field conflict, and or septic likely to be within soil not suited or marginally suited for wastewater treatment. So, and each of those is a point. The darker colors have potentially greater need to be served. So the blues have 1. We see a lot of blues. We've got kind of some oranges and some reds over here. We've got a smattering over here. Want to bear in mind what Justin said a couple meetings ago, which is that in a desktop exercise, what may be a constraint is something that could be engineered away with enough design and money. We don't know anything about people's willingness to do that on a given parcel. So this just gives us kind of a collapsed or a compiled version of need. What are the numbers? So these are different collection systems of areas from which waste would be collected, is my understanding. And so little mini service sub areas.
So like all those ones are coming from one service area, one from one system.
Yeah.
2 is coming from a system.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it says that the quantity of gallons per day is for existing. Which I can understand would make sense in a lot of areas, but it would not make sense in area 2.
Area 2 should not have, why does area 2?
Well, it would have some existing, but there's gonna be ideally a lot more new that isn't.
Right, so those numbers would be higher once we calculate in additional development. Are you saying 12,000 seems high?
No, I'm
considering
saying that
development?
if that column is only for existing existing users, that
Mhm.
it doesn't reflect
It's not the full picture.
the whole. It's not
That section, the 2 area there is gonna have a whole bunch more demand.
right.
Yeah,
Than it's
so
reflected.
this is an incomplete picture. But just gives a sense. And I guess I pulled this up to facilitate the conversation about might there be areas less in need or more in need than others? And
Well,
because earlier we started talking about Raceway.
I'm gonna say
Picture.
racing, right?
So again, all of this, I just want to say as many times as possible for anyone who's listening is this is not a decision to be made by this group only. There's certainly going to be future research, including talking with people about what their needs are.
So this is very helpful.
Yeah.
Because it helps us see that there are subsets of the service area that are logically organized, numbered 1 through 8. And then the colors tell us that based on current status, there's different grades of need, different gradations of need. What seems like we would maybe want to modify about this view is adding points for parcels that have significant development opportunity. So that if you had a location like number 2, which has however many points it has, but it also has a very high level of development opportunity compared to a medium, compared to a low, it would maybe get like 3 or 4 points and something else. So that this map is doing a very good job of showing sort of current, but we want to blend it together with future potential so that the colors lead us to consider future potential.
Would you also consider subtracting points if it has great soil, like all along Raceway?
Yes,
Because-
yeah, that's
I think that's kind of accounted
Or
for in
yes.
that they don't have bad soils. You get a point
Right.
if you're, if
Yeah.
you have
But according to
unsuitable
Justin-
soils.
I mean, according to Justin, it wouldn't make sense for those people ever to connect to a municipal system.
Right,
Well, no, he
they're all
they have really good,
ones.
they have really good soil, but they might have, I'm making this up, they might have a well that blocks off part of their land, or there might be some other restriction that they can't have, they already have septic that failed once, and then, you know, I mean, there could be other reasons
Yeah.
besides good soil.
I thought he came pretty close to saying.
No, he did say like, no one there is ever gonna get septic.
Right.
So
So
he basically said that.
that's what I'm saying, it seems like that's a really important thing to bear in mind.
The dark red is the highest need, is that right?
Dark red is highest need. Anything in blue just has one constraint or property interest expressed.
So the highest need ones are shown on a street that are off of Raceway.
Mhm. Good. They don't have a laser
It's a
pointer.
hill.
Is this what you mean, Chris? Talking about the western
Yes.
portion of Block 6?
Gee, what you run into tough there is there might be a high need for, so what you're saying is the red is high need for septic? But those are outliers, you know, just, do we do the,
Right.
Right.
Yes, but, I mean, I don't wanna, but that's the area that's supposed to have good soils, right?
the
Well,
red
if
is.
it's 5, if it's red, it's got 5 factors, which includes
One of which is
soil not suited or
Yeah.
marginally suited.
Yeah.
But I also thought Justin told us that he recently replaced a system on that road.
Yeah.
Yeah, innovative. Yeah,
An innovative system, yeah, with some, the side setbacks were a little different,
Yeah.
right?
Do you know how these yellow lines were drawn?
I don't.
I have a computer.
Wasn't it kind
I
of,
was thinking, pretty handy.
Yeah.
My bad.
the color, great on.
is that what you meant, or you
No,
meant like?
no, that was just making fun of.
Wasn't it sort of based on like where the yellow potential sites were and then the diagram of like where the pumps might be? So I thought they were based kind of on the logic of the infrastructure.
But like the upper right hand corner of 8, I'm like, what's going on there? Like maybe 8's all the middle school and that's the 2 houses that are locked up. I don't know. I was just wondering sort of how that got.
Homework for all of us,
Mhm.
especially, I've been meaning to do this for a couple weeks. Reread the PER before Wednesday. That will.
Homework.
Homework,
It's so long.
not fair.
You're right. I should.
38 pages with a bunch of pictures. And what was the other thing I was gonna say? And as we prepare for the next meeting, we'll ask John Ashley to give us the lowdown on this.
Explain that map in
Yeah.
a minute.
But we
Yeah.
got here because we were asking ourselves, are there areas? The previous slide had the question like, are there areas of less need and areas of more need?
Yes. So.
So do we have a sense of that from looking at this map? A better sense of answering that question, also factoring in that we kind of know where we think the development potential is, but it's not scored. that
But
way.
this scoring doesn't take into account, I don't believe, the development potential.
Exactly.
That's right.
So lot 2 should be off the charts.
Right.
If you take that into consideration.
I'm gonna put that on the areas that appear to need service list, section 2, sub area, collection area 2.
We also want to talk a little bit about presenting to the select board next week, and we have like 25 or so minutes. I just want to make sure we're.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not good at keeping us on a time schedule. Given that we only have 25 minutes, where's the smartest place to spend the rest of our evening, despite what the agenda might say? What do you think is the most important that we get settled before we meet with Jim?
A plan for this, well. I think we've had good conversation about, we've kind of started talking about assessment of additional disposal sites. I don't think we need to talk a lot more about that, agenda item 6. I think the most important thing for this group to figure out tonight is an approach to presenting to the select board next week. That's not the most important thing before John comes, but it is an important thing. I think you've raised some good questions that'll shape how John shows up next week. We could pause this conversation and do like a quick popcorn, like write down any questions that you definitely want John to answer next week, and then move on to the select board presentation. Or we can keep talking about areas that appear to need or not need service.
If you have, if you have a couple of minutes, Ashwak has a couple reactions to some of the questions at the end of the draft. So if that works to fit that in.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So these are the section 6 of the PER, where it's sort of the questions for further consideration, and one of them was reaching out to the indirect discharge program. So thanks for taking a look at that.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know if I can share quickly my screen.
Sure.
I'm trying to share my screen. Yeah. Do you see the screen like this?
Yeah, we're working on it.
There we go.
Yeah. So I have, I wished, you see the screen, right?
Yes. Can you close your first, Chris? Sorry. Yes.
So I wish John was here because I had a couple of questions, but I may now give you an overview about my comments. So I don't know, in general, for the wastewater program permits, this is the school site, right? So what is proposed is 2 mounts here, 2 drip systems here, and a larger indirect discharge system here. Do you see the cursor?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So, and in general, in the wastewater program, we have 2 sets of rules. The small scale rules that we call the WW rules. It's for system with capacity less than 6,500 gallons per day. And the other systems that are larger than 65 gallons per day, they are permitted under the indirect discharge program. So in this, for the site A, for example, here, so John proposed a 2 mount system. And for some design questions, he considered the WW set of rules. So I'm wondering why he did that. Logically for me, the total capacity of these 2 systems together is 13,000 gallons per day, which make them, under the umbrella of the indirect discharge rules. Same thing for these 2 systems together, which totalize also 13,000 gallons per day. And also there is another question I had, because this system is very close. It's very probable that the effluent from these systems, from A, B, it will, as the slope is going down towards the river, it's very likely that wastewater will commingle from system A and system B and go to system C and then to the river. In that case, this whole 3 A, B, and C would be considered as a single indirect discharge system. And there are monitoring, demonstration of compliance with what we call aquatic permitting criteria, and monitoring if the system is under indirect discharge rules. So there is the hydrogeological study should be refined. It's something technical details that I can discuss separately with John. But I think further work should be done to investigate the hydrogeological connection of these 3 systems. Also, there is another comment. The capacity of the site, I didn't understand very well how he came up with that number. he said it's between 52,000 and 56 and 62,000 gallon per day. And I think that can change if we change the set of rules. So maybe also that number needs to be refined, as you said. So what I propose is that I can put all this on paper and share my comments with John before next week meetings, so that we can have his feedback before the meeting of next week. That's my thought.
Yeah, for sure.
He does
Thank you.
call out in the PER specifically trying to avoid that indirect discharge rule, and that's why they're all 6,500
Yeah, I understand. That's
units.
called
So he seemed to think that this would
that would
avoid
be
that
called
rule.
in the indirect discharge rules, which are more stringent. That's true, and they need more sampling of water and etc. But that would be called circumvention of the rules. So we have a set
So,
of
no,
criteria.
That's my first thought.
Yeah. We
no,
have
I
a set
actually,
of. Oh, sorry.
I have a question when you're done.
Yes.
So I have a question in regards to that. So, if we're looking at phasing and separation of those for phasing, does that change it, or serving different areas? Doesn't that change the interpretation of looking at those systems as more of a separate basis than 65 being combined? Does phasing have anything to do with it?
Yeah, I understand. I mean, for example, these two, they are very close. So together, it makes alone an indirect discharge system. But if, for example, you take a system here and another one geographically not very close, this may be considered as two separate systems and can be permitted under the small scale rules. Is that your question?
Yeah, kind of, because I do know on a couple occasions, we've actually designed two systems that are very close to 6,500 gallons. One was serving a commercial, and one was serving a residential. And, the separation wasn't much different than this, and we were allowed to proceed that way because
Yeah.
it was two separate service entities.
Yeah, we have a set of criterion which details this circumvention condition. And I mean, like, there are sometimes engineering constraints or geographic constraints. If I would like to share that with John and with you also. And I mean, for our program, we need to have a justification why. I mean, you would like to permit under the WW rules, because there are a lot of things that change depending on the set of rules that you consider. For example, here, if it's a large system, there are certain isolation distance to surface water, for example, or to roads, etc. While if it's a small system, the distances are in general smaller. So I can't make the determination right now, because we need to be a more in-depth hydrogeological study to show that the systems are separate. But if you place together many systems that are close, they will all discharge to the same groundwater and then to the same surface water. So it makes them, it will look like a circumvention of the rules, which is not allowed. But we have those criteria.
That's why we were asking.
We're gonna need those comments very soon for John to interpret.
Yeah, I have them. I'm drafting that like in a clean way, and I can share that by tomorrow, I think.
Wow.
When you said the capacity would change, if it was an indirect system, does that mean it would go down?
I was thinking in the other, no, more it will, in my opinion, there are two things that I would like to share also with you and with John. If we consider, which is considered in this PER, if you consider drip dispersal system, which is the case here, we can allow, how to explain that in a simple way. In general, if it's not a drip dispersal system, the indirect discharge rules, they require to build the system like in double. For example, if you have 1 acre here, you should have a second acre to have and to make what we call dual alternation, which means the first year, for example, in year 1, the first leach field will serve year 1, and then the second leach field will serve year 2, and then you alternate to give 1 year of rest for the systems. If you have a drip dispersal system, we don't have this requirement. We have another requirement, and like instead of asking for the double, we will ask for 1.5 times. So which allows like to have for the same surface, we can apply more. And also that's the first thing. I think it can increase the capacity of the site. The second thing is that here advanced option of treatment were not considered. If you have an indirect discharge system and you place, for example, you choose to have, for example, secondary or secondary plus or tertiary treatment, you can multiply your capacity between 2 and 5 times, depending on the level of treatment. So this is also an option that would be further discussed, I think. But we still need to do, we still need to do the hydrogeological study to show if you apply more, does the site still have capacity?
That's helpful. It also makes me think in a new way about more dispersed disposal sites that are not hydrogeologically connected to the middle school property, and for permitting purposes as well. This is very eye-opening.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking forward to reading those comments. Thank you for looking into it and for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Right. Eric, do you want me to talk about the select board presentation?
What do you guys want to say to the select board? What do you think is the most important thing that those of us on the select board hear?
Well, what do you think, since you've been giving updates along the way? What is your take on what we should add?
I don't mean this jokingly or snottily. Like, what does the select board need to know? What is it?
I
We've been getting kind of updates along the way. Like, what do they need? They need to decide the 90% request, right?
Yeah. Select board.
Not tomorrow or not next week,
Right, but that's the purpose of us updating them.
It's just previewing and say, hey, remember you bought this
Yeah.
PER?
Yeah.
Here's what the status is. Here's some, you could share preliminary findings.
Yeah.
And say what the work is that we're doing and what we'll be coming back to the select board for. But
Thanks, Tom.
uh,
And I think it's a good opportunity to have other people,
Non-select board people
in front of the select board.
Yeah.
Not that you guys aren't doing a great job.
Yeah,
but
no.
just
Yep. Here are the people who are doing this, and
it's kind of like we're doing with trying to do with many of our other stakeholders. Like, hey, we've talked about this before. Here's the latest. Yes. But as select board members, I think you have a good idea of what's needed.
I think we're going to learn more when John's here, to be honest. I don't know that I feel like I'm going to know so much more after John comes about what we want to tell the select board.
those are back to back, right?
Yeah.
Like Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
well, it's also I don't think the select board. I don't know if we need to give them all the information like we know
Right.
at that moment at that time. Keep them that up to date. I think
we need
more
to tell them that sort of.
strategically what's the right information to give them now that they don't already have.
And I think it's that we're learning that, like, for example, I would share that we started off looking at this space, and now in talking to Justin, we're thinking about sort of maybe carving off a section, which then might change the phasing. And I would share that that we're hoping to work with Brown. You got to think about this kind of politically or whatever, but like hoping to work with Browns River, because that's like one location that gives us a big chunk of land to work with, as opposed to picking off different individual spots. And we've been talking about the ratio of new versus existing, and that that towns, what's it called? Like not parcel out, but what are they?
Allocate.
They allocate,
Allocation.
they towns typically allocate the different types of uses, so it's not just first come, first serve. And the select board maybe should be thinking about how they wanna give us any guidance on how to allocate that growth. I just feel like,
Is it too early to inform the select board or have the select board be informed that the process of CHIPS, how it starts, funding and so on, just
funding
to
stack.
bring that out, that it's
Might
kind
be the
of,
perfect moment to put a slide up
just
there.
introduce that.
Does the
the
finance committee have
process.
anything to report? Like where, I don't know who that is even, but.
Hey,
It's us.
Okay, do you have anything in terms of like,
I think we've learned some things about CHIP that
We could say.
but anything beyond CHIP? In terms of like, oh, we've got these other 5 things where they'll be able to access or.
I tell you, the stuff you and I discussed, Chris, about, having it and and not inviting, but making sure we open the opportunity to private entities to take involved in this. I think the quicker we get that out, the better.
Well, and I was thinking something to let them know now. This isn't an answer to your question about the financing,
Yeah.
but to let them know now is like the results from the middle school aren't as positive as we thought. So it's going to cause us to have to look at potential other sites. I mean, that's a big thing. I think to start laying the groundwork.
Yeah.
but I thought that until we considered the idea of
Right.
deleting out Raceway, and then it's like, oh, if we do that, right? Like that's kind of what I got when we had that meeting last time.
Yes, and also what
Ashra, right? Thank you.
yes, was saying about different ways of increasing capacity
Right.
of the. But I think laying the groundwork, just even saying we may need to look at others. I mean, because we may need to, and I'd rather if we know now, start laying the groundwork instead of showing up the next meeting and saying, "Oops, we have a contract we need you to sign."
Again, I keep
So yeah,
doing this.
we can update it with that.
Yeah.
And maybe we have.
Yeah.
I
So-
think we talked about the test pits and a little bit, but maybe, but yeah, we definitely can do that.
Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. I edited the PowerPoint that we had, that I gave a couple meetings ago, to just talk about the PER. So if that would be helpful, there could be a background slide on just recapping the building the record, the historic record since 2021 of working on this project, where it came from, what the objectives are, why it's considered important to Jericho. Could use the project timeline.
I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Okay. Could talk about,
However, on that slide, I think the 2 blue arrows that show final design and construction should be hashed or something so that they're not so.
This one looks like
definite.
finalized.
Yeah, it's like a big maybe use one of those cow gates or I don't know, but it's like fade it out or something or
Yeah,
scribble
a
it.
lighter gray,
Yeah.
and a lighter blue or something.
thank you. How's everywhere?
Yeah.
The person presenting could talk about how there has been stakeholder work and will continue to be, as well as public outreach work. This is a slide that could be improved, but you may remember it, where we are in the process. We received this document, it's a draft document. Here's what we need to do next. This is just to orient people to things. This is the study area and the key findings. Again, I don't know if this is too much detail for the select board.
It'll depend on who's there.
Yeah.
And then
Who's the presenter and how much time is there on the agenda for the presentation?
I'll present it,
You
we'll present that.
and we don't do
times.
tons.
Great.
I
I think this is
2 hours.
I think this is a 15 or 20-minute agenda item, depending on how many questions. But you know the board more than I do.
Well, he knows the attendees more than.
Yeah, right.
Alternative designs, I think this might be too much detail. This is the
Can you
way
go-
too much detail.
Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
First, next detail.
Maybe this is a good one.
I feel like if we really wanted to keep it short, the slide that's just the key findings of the PER. I mean, that's a real important one.
That seems like, this slide here seems like maybe more than we need right now, but
Okay, I'm going to hide it.
Although the boxes on the right might be, if they were rephrased a little bit in a more layman's term.
Mhm.
I don't know if they're incorporated into the key findings of the PER slide also.
Okay.
Are they reiterated or are they,
This is, no,
yeah, so that those are, might be okay.
Look here too, that's easier.
thank you. I think this slide is too detailed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Preliminary findings on cost estimates, I think it's worth sharing.
Just putting numbers in front of people is good.
Yeah, preliminary,
Oh, wait.
discussion and question. Oh, Lynette, yeah,
Most people get scared by the super big numbers. And so
Okay.
looking at the ERU number that John provides, which is more like a budgetary kind of number, relative to the individual user, can be more relatable and less scary.
okay,
it also doesn't necessarily reflect the way we would phase it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think those numbers are
Too scary.
too scary.
I think they're
and
more
not
alarmist
accurate.
than necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
we'll fix this. This reminds me of something I wanted to say before I forget again. Our 60% PER is a draft. We know we have feedback for John at D&K. Some of you have seen that feedback. I'm gonna clean that up, send it to him tomorrow so that we can get an updated final 60% PER edited. In the meantime, there have been inquiries from one member of the public who's interested in seeing the draft. Given that it's probably going to be a week and a half before we get a new 60%, the proposal is to make this early draft pre-edits available to the person and anyone else who asks. And when our edits are incorporated, put the document on the website. That means there will be 2 drafts of the 60% out there, but it also means that we're sharing information sooner rather than later. Is that all right?
And you'll be telling that person that this is a draft and there's another one coming out, and that person has the capacity to understand that, to not.
Could we just ask them to wait 10
Wait
days?
2 weeks, yeah.
It'll have a draft stamp on each page.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and we were also thinking,
She asked me.
if anyone
Sure.
asks for a copy of the PER before the comments are addressed and posted online, that we would make it available if people ask for it specifically. Just to be
That's fine.
right, yeah.
Online. I don't know if you want a discussion and questions slide from the select board for the select board's benefit. I don't know if that's how you roll, but we can keep that. Potential next steps. This would be a different slide because this is more specific to this group. We could do just a basic next step slide for the select board. And again, it's a little presumptuous of me that slides are even desired, but we can make slides.
No, that's fine.
Might be good to have a co-presenter from the task force, and we reached out to Justin, who's a little under the weather today, but to consider as a task force member who's not
That'd
a
be a good call.
select board member or
Candidate.
running for the select board.
I think 2 pieces I would suggest adding.
Yeah.
One is at the very beginning, listing out the task force and the members of the task force. And your first slide today was, oh, the task force has been meeting for 6 months.
Mhm.
I think that would be helpful. And then the slide that had the stakeholder outreach you mentioned verbally, you said, and we've been doing public outreach.
Mhm.
But I think it'd be worthwhile to really emphasize all the work that you did, Kate, and Chris on the website and the materials that are there, because to me, part of the benefit of this meeting, like you're saying, building the historical record, there has been some front porch chatter very little, but it's been misleading. And so I think about this meeting as arming the select board, all the members with enough basic facts.
True fact.
And also knowing like, oh my God, there's this whole library of phenomenal material now available on the website, and really emphasizing that so that anybody listening, anybody watching the recording, anybody who saw those front porch forum and then sees your meeting and they're like, oh, that's not what they're doing like at all. This is very well thought out, very well staffed, very well researched. That would be a great outcome. Sort of great that the select board's informed, but it's
But
almost
also,
like
like-
a channel.
Right, yep. 100%.
Okay. That's great.
Okay, so I think I and Chris and you will be in touch to refine this.
I'm sorry, this also just made me think. So everyone has gotten an email and a nice reminder to please fill out your bios.
Can someone share one with me what you put in?
Open the
I've
link,
got
they're all right there.
Oh, they are there?
Click on the link, they're all right there.
Okay.
Just a reminder, I went to do it, I couldn't do it on my phone, and then I knew I'd forget, so I forgot.
Should have had you interview each other, write each other's. Let's see.
You should bring Peter's toilet too and say we had the meeting, like town meeting and.
Which I that we they'll show we have a really great picture from the town meeting with the toilet in the foreground. And I think that's gonna be being used on like a state website or state document.
Oh, really?
You're famous.
Yeah.
Or maybe that could be in this slide presentation too.
Yeah.
Peter Stan.
Yeah, you're TikTok famous,
Yeah.
you're on all the
TMRI
that comes out of
paraphernalia,
the town.
Yep.
But on the select board, like 45 minutes, you've got every freaking.
You're doing double duty.
I have one thing, and I know we talked to you about this, Chris, or maybe it's Peter, Kate. You know, after town meeting day, one of us, unless we get spanked
Oh,
by
right.
a write-in, is gonna be on the select board. And
3 select
so the
board.
question becomes this. Whatever occurs, can we still serve on a subcommittee?
No, because you can't, 3 of us here, so now it's a
One
select
of
board
us,
meeting.
one of
No,
us
no.
three will have.
If there's a subcommittee of me, Justin, and well, Chris wins, Justin, me, and Tom, we only have a subcommittee meeting. We're not part of the whole committee, just a sub.
I
Does
don't,
that work?
I don't know what the rules specifically are on that, but my quick read of that is that if it were open, it would need to be open to, the subcommittees would then need to be open to all the public. Anyone who wants to participate. And there may be good reason to do that.
No, I don't follow what you're saying.
I don't follow what you're saying.
If Chris wins, you, Tom, and Justin
We can still meet.
right.
So.
I think you
But
mean
if he
it. I
wins,
think you mean
he
it.
can't be on the.
I can't be
task
here today.
force, but he could still be on the.
Oh.
Committee.
Oh,
That's the question, is whether someone who is not on the task force can be on a subcommittee, a subgroup.
Oh,
that's.
that's your question.
And my sense is no, because unless the configuration of the subgroups becomes working
Not
group
more
for
than
any.
any select board member
Wait, but if-
on that subcommittee, then we're fine, they just can't be it.
Then how
Can't have
are we,
all 3 of us.
I think the question is, how are we identifying additional members to be in working groups that are not part of the task force?
Right, so if someone gets elected to the select board and steps away from the task force.
Yeah.
What is their connection to should they have a connection to the subgroup any longer? It's not about quorum, it's about who. The bigger question is, are
Subgroups
subgroups,
open to non-task force people.
thank you.
Maybe there'd be a write-in, I
I
don't
never
know.
thought about that, I don't know.
There could probably be a way to do it for,
You guys, this problem is like a whole month away.
But it also,
Yeah,
Like,
but it also,
yeah.
thing to figure out.
it also can be that whatever permutation that just, I don't, forget the who wins, but if Joe could be on the task force and not come to task force meetings. He's on the task force, he just doesn't ever come to meetings.
Yeah, but all the emails and stuff.
Better, just
Okay.
thought.
No, well, let's all keep chewing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just celebrate a little bit the outreach activity that took place, and here's a photo that came from it.
Yeah, right.
This is the table at the Town Hall Reimagined event last week, not just last week. Yeah, nice work.
You, Carol?
Oh.
Sounds-
That's
That's you?
Great.
On the crutches.
Well, I was wondering, I was thinking, why should you on crutches?
All right, there you go.
I was gonna say, I got a meat meter.
We're over time. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.